Okay, it takes a second. Hey, Jinah.
Hi,
I think
Katie.
we are recording, so happy to be here with you.
Awesome. Happy to be here as well. Thanks for having me.
I am. So just to start off, I mean, who are you, and why should we know about what you're up to?
Yeah. Well, big questions here, but well, I'm Jinah Kim, and I am the founder and owner of Sunhee's Farm and Kitchen. We've been in downtown Troy for approximately 4.5 years at this point. Yeah, and so I'm actually a Capital Region native, grew up right in Latham, New York. And so it was really, really special that I ended up back here in Troy and being able to work very closely with my family and a staff. And Sunhee's, our main mission is rooted in working with immigrants and refugees, just because that's also the background that I personally come from. And we've always had a heart and mission for new immigrants. And even prior to opening up Sunhee's, I had worked in refugee resettlement for a few years. I would teach English, help people find jobs. And I think all that experience kind of compiled, it just really fit in perfectly with the fact that my family had a farm, they were living there, they were producing things. And so we really saw this powerful connection between, food, people, and the role that even immigrants play in our communities, and really just saw the opportunity to have a self-sustained business that could provide direct programming right in our space and through the staff that we work with.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're one of few businesses, especially for a restaurant, that has a mission. What kind of led you to want to have a mission, and what led to that mission being part of your work?
Sure. Well, it's funny because when people ask about our mission, it's almost like, even from an individual standpoint, it's when people ask you, like, who are you and why are you alive?
Yeah.
Really, because that's the core of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
why are you here? Like, what's your purpose, and what is like, why do you even exist? And I think in a way, of course everyone has a mission, and some of it, I think, having a mission to make a profit is also a noble thing, right? As a small business owner, to support your family, whatever it might be. And for us, and I look back and think about when we first opened Sunhee's, and when we were, well, when I say we, back then it was just me, when I was writing out my business plan, and every business plan has a mission statement, and thinking about why I want to commit myself to something that everyone says is such difficult work, being in the food industry. And I remember drafting the mission statement just a few months before we opened, and I realized that the mission really did come from a place where, I mean, it's more than just a passion, but really believing in what's good and right, and even the core of who I am as a person. And so at that point, I had been working in refugee resettlement in New York City, and then also here in Albany. And I moved back to Albany with the intent of starting a business at some near future point. And it's just, I think about all the people that I've met up until even now, right? And even before we started the business, I just saw and heard and witnessed a lot of like resiliency within immigrant communities in particular. I remember when I was in New York, and there was a woman from Burkina Faso, and she would travel 2 hours one way from the Bronx every single morning, Monday through Thursday, for English classes. And she must have been like 68 years old, but here was this woman, like, so determined to learn a new language and to really become a part of this larger American community, right? And to whatever that means, to become an American. And it was really stories like that I think I realized, like, here's this resiliency, this untapped potential, even at an age where maybe someone's not directly working. We have so many people in across all cities in the United States, and and employment and education were kind of those big milestones in terms of bringing that opportunity to light. And so even as an immigrant American myself, I feel like I saw my parents starting from scratch and working their way, and really being self-employed was one of the things that gave them a lot of freedom and flexibility. And they also had to work all that much harder. And so I guess like, again, it's just all of these different pieces where I saw how my family, I also, you know, worked with people directly and repeatedly just, I think that work ethic, but also that opportunity was really instilled in my mind, and I wanted to see it come to light. And when I moved back, and again, like just, I was presented with the opportunity, even like finding a space, right? That can be a lot of work too. And having come upon this space, which now I feel like if someone came into what was, you know, the Irish Ale Pub where Sunhee's is, it was vacant for 2 years before we went into that space, which is crazy because now it would have been like snatched up right away. Really? And so like, it was like this, it was timing, it was, you know, having support in my life, and then really believing in something even beyond myself, and wanting to just try it out. So I think I didn't think it was going to be perfect, and even now I know that for sure.
Great way to go about it.
We strive, yeah, I know we strive every day to fulfill that mission, and we make a lot of mistakes along the way. I think about the past 4 years and all the you know, struggles and kind of like growth that we had to go through. But I mean, ultimately, I think it's because even in COVID, right, it's because we have that like-minded vision, we believe in each other, and we understand that Sunhee's is here, you know, because of our mission. Sunhee's, we have no reason to even exist if it weren't for that. And it's become such a powerful tool, and more than just a means, really, with food and community, and even building and providing a space where people can come together. It's really like Sunhee's existence in itself is carrying out this mission, and we want to reflect that in everything that we do. And I tell my staff from day one, and if they're looking to join our team, is that, you know, it doesn't matter if you're teaching a class, if you're you know, delivering food to a customer, or wiping down the table and mopping the floors. Like, our mission should be entrenched in every little thing that we do on a daily basis. It's a lifestyle. Even what you do outside of work is important. All of our relationships, like our outlook and attitude, like all of it matters. And I think a lot of times when people look at our mission, they look at our programming and kind of like, even like where, well, you also have to look where the money goes, right? The money trail. But even beyond that, and in addition to that, I think it's really about each individual person and how we live that out in our work.
That's awesome.
Sorry, that was a really long answer.
No, that was great. I'm glad you were.
I don't quite.
I'm glad you gave that. I mean, you're right. It is a lifestyle, right? It is, for you, your mission is ingrained in everything you do. So I recognize when you first started your business, and I can't believe it's 4.5 years already. You had invited community members into your space before you had even opened, to get to know people, and to not just show who you were, but to really say, hi, I'm here, can we be friends? You know? And I remember the conversation that you had at that lunch, and really you explaining kind of the background behind the business, and what it meant to be together, and that you were showcasing, you know, a part of you, a part of your background to a community that you didn't know would accept it. So can you kind of explain to me the thought process of like, how am I going to present myself and present my business, my mission, to individuals and kind of what that, you know, how you got to that place of like, I want to invite community into my space. It was a while ago, so maybe it's
Yeah, no. I think it's still very relevant, and I've thought about that a lot recently because so one of our former employees, she came to visit me this past weekend, and I don't remember, you remember Grace?
Yep.
And she goes, Gina, like it seems like you got a little jaded these days. That's what she said. She's like, oh, you seem a lot different from like three and a half years ago when she was working with us. How I seem to be a little maybe less, like maybe a little bit more impatient or kind of like complaining about certain things. And I thought a lot about that and how, you know, naturally, I think as business owners and in life too, right? You learn things and you experience things and you become jaded to a certain point. But well, especially like I remember that lunch too, and I felt so, and I still feel so powerfully about my given role as a bridge, as and this is between cultures, between like generations. I've always felt like I had this unique gift of bridging people together, and like seriously enjoying it. It's not even like work for me. Like I was always like the mediator in friend groups, or even like I'm really good at talking to like elders in Korea, but also like the younger like my generation. So bringing that together, people who have language differences, and I think, you know, as much as even now I might complain about things or be disappointed and discouraged, where I feel like maybe people aren't accepting my culture or who I am, or maybe making very ignorant comments. I think I've definitely grown like jaded in that way where even with customers, like I'm less tolerant of certain things, or I might be tolerant, but I'll you know be like, oh, like again, you know, please like stop coming into a restaurant asking for General Tso's chicken, like please. But one thing I came to accept and really recognize is that that is the role that I have chosen and still choose to do. You know, it's not like someone forced it on me. It's not like someone said you have to open up a Korean restaurant in downtown Troy. You know, I chose that. Like I chose to be here. I chose to be in a city where you don't have, you know, a huge, I mean, it's definitely growing, but you don't have a huge, you know, diverse population, and you don't see as many Asian Americans. And, you know, people still come in thinking, you know, we're like wondering where we're from, or they'll ask me where I come from and whether I'm from North Korea. So it's just, it's something where I think I have learned to appreciate the fact that I can be in a place of inviting people into something different, no matter how ignorant they may seem. I think I really appreciate a lot of customers' like willingness to learn, curiosity, and so it's really trying to look at the good things in people, and the bright side of even being in a place where fewer people are aware of our food and our culture. And I think it's been working. You know, I think just having that conversation, and again having a space that is welcoming to anybody on all spectrums, has been impactful in our communities. And I know, you know, Sunhee's has become a place where anyone can come in, and especially I've been focusing more on how we reach, you know, specific immigrant communities too.
Do you have any, like, I mean, you just said you do, right? Targets of how do I reach individual people, right? A certain group of people. When you started, did you have that in mind, or have you just found that people were generally accepting of you in the business?
Are you saying,
like,
did I think people would accept us? Is that what you're asking?
No, I mean, like, did you have an idea of your ideal customer, right? When you started, what you're saying is that you have found that you're welcoming to all, right? So did you have an idea of that customer before you started?
I think we initially thought of like the capital region as a whole. So not
Mm-hmm.
just Troy, but we understood, there's no Korean restaurants all across, Troy, Schenectady, Albany, even all the suburbs. And so we knew there was a need. And but we definitely went in thinking and knowing that we're not going to be targeting Korean people. That's for sure. Like we're targeting everyone but Koreans, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think our menu, like all of our design elements, the menu, marketing, it's all extremely intentional for
Mm-hmm.
that purpose. There's a reason why we have a single page menu that is extremely approachable. You have like we chose not to use the Korean alphabet, but we do have Korean words written out in English, but you have a combination of like, so you have like bulgogi, right, which is a Korean word, but then you also have house chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to, bridge the two together. And we talk about even how we chose our name. We wanted something that's people can easily pronounce, but then it still looks Korean. And so people can kind of like wonder what that means and where it comes from. But yeah, I think in the beginning we wanted to target everyone, but then we realized and I realized too as we did business that if you want to reach like cast a wider net, we essentially need to use different avenues of targeting those audiences.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say like I think diversifying our products, our means of reaching people. So not just having an Instagram, but also like doing email newsletters and flyers. There's different means that reach different people, and we want to get everyone from young adults to the older folks.
Mm-hmm. Has your mission kind of played into that? Or is that it just is like you're reaching who you specifically want to reach, but like your mission is really
Mm-hmm.
to bridge those connections too. So have you been looking at like how do you connect different individuals who come to your spaces or?
Yeah, and I can't put a finger on it. I don't know. There are intentional partnerships that we make. So like programming is a big one with our English classes. We'll have people like students who come in because of the classes, but then they start liking our food. Vice versa, we'll have a customer who really enjoys our food and they learn that we have English classes and end up enrolling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of like actual, I guess, exposure between different groups, there are like smaller scale events, and I think there's also like the more official partnerships and sponsorships we'll do with nonprofits and other organizations that have similar missions. But I realize like it's we're not trying to like necessarily, I guess, like substitute for a community. It's more about like bringing all of those communities together. And so
Mm-hmm.
like I think ethnic communities are a great example where it's like there's a reason why Korean Americans like hanging out with other Korean Americans, but at the same time, it becomes an issue once you become so like exclusive within your own that you don't know how to network with other communities. But I think at least acknowledging that having that identity and that culture and connection with each other is so important. So like, I can't connect with another Burmese, person the same way other Burmese people can with each other. But at the same time, I think if we connect at least some of the more like leaders within those communities,
Mm-hmm.
the other bridge makers and the ones who have that like-minded vision of bringing people together, then we have that opportunity of bridging the gaps.
Mm-hmm. So thinking of somebody, another business that is maybe they don't have a mission, maybe they are looking to say like, what do I want to add to my community? Where is my role? Do you have suggestions on like how somebody can go about that to try to understand like what is their role in their community and how does that play into their business in the format of that?
Sure. Well, I think there's two main things you have to look at. I mean, and it's the same question that you ask yourself when you look for, or when you're like trying to do career counseling and helping someone find a job, is, what do you like to do, and what are you good at doing? Because if you gotta have both. Like some people really like, you know, playing the piano, but they just suck at it, you know. So it's I think those are the same questions of like, number one, like what do you believe in as you're the leader of the business and you're the one who really is going to be able to invest that heart into it. So like what do you care about and believe in? And then I think secondly would be the question of like what kind of resources do you have in order to like to efficiently and impactfully, and by efficiently I mean like the most, because I think we can all do things, but there's a point in specializing in one thing. And so how can what kind of resources do you have that make your situation unique? And even like I think looking at the relationships and connections that you already have are very important, and trying to research other organizations that do similar type of work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So for like, I'm thinking about, you know, a lot of times, you know, different organizations and things will come and reach out to businesses, and, you know, maybe they recognize that they have a mission or not, but we'll ask for donations, or we'll ask for support, or for you to be on a board, or whatever it looks like.
Oh yeah.
How do you take those opportunities and kind of determine what's going to work for your actual individual business?
Sure. I mean, a lot of, like, I get why small business owners get frustrated at all the requests for donations. They're like, again, like, we're not rolling the money here.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of that too, for sure. And the thing is, we don't have endless resources. And
Yeah.
I think for a lot of us, it depends on really your capacity. So we have to really evaluate where we stand and what that extent of what we can do is. But I think we also just have to be really selective in terms of which organizations we want. Even if you want to support all of them, I think just, again, once you establish your own mission, you can kind of put that next to other organizations' missions and see where there's the closest alignment. So I know for us, like, it's very different when, like, let's say the refugee resettlement, local resettlement office reaches out to us for a partnership, versus I don't know, like, even like maybe like the Troy Little League, you know, which just in terms of evaluation of our mission statements is very different. And so for us, when it comes to especially our money and our time, we want to invest it into an opportunity that provides more than just like that surface level, like, oh, here's a gift card. Like, I would rather have like the people working together, or actual like sponsoring the event together. And then with some of the, I think, other organizations that are more on the periphery of your mission, then we could support them with like smaller items. But I don't know, for us, we've been pretty consistent in terms of who we partner with, but then we always want to ask the question of like, is there someone new that we haven't thought of? Like, is there another community that does have shared values and a shared mission that we haven't really even considered partnering with?
I mean, as part of the community, I mean, you're very involved, and you have an incredible amount that is already on your plate. How do you kind of prioritize? I mean, we've already talked a little bit about very specific things, but like, how do you prioritize your time and the amount of like energy that you put into projects that aren't related to the actual business itself?
How do I prioritize my time? So my time is one of the most valuable things in the world to me, and it's so it's funny, just for my my staff will make fun of me because there's this one, they say I coined it. I think I coined it too. But basically it's like, I got time, but no time to waste. And it's really, I think it's a statement of the fact that you can make yourself available and we all have the time, and we can choose where to invest our time. Um, but I think for me, like I want to minimize what is being wasted, but then there's a question of like, what does it mean to be wasting time?
Mm.
And for me, definitely number one thing is people. That's always been a priority for me, especially friends, family, meaningful relationships. I think I'll carve out time for that no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when it comes to the business and even like law school now, I think it's not so much about like prioritization as it is just planning ahead and learning how to balance and manage my time the best that I can. Because I was just talking about this with someone, but it's a lot of times it's about timing, like just and knowing yourself. So for me, like I know that I study better in the morning, and I like being at the restaurant and helping out there in the evenings. And so having that balance of also like knowing your capacity.
Yep.
Yeah, I think with priorities especially, I've had to ultimately like think of it in terms of like, yes, it's a balance. Yes, I believe I can do it all, but if I had to give up something, what would the first thing I give up be?
Yeah.
And in that way, I've learned to kind of like manage it in my own mind. And it's the same thing like when you're planning an event, right, Katie? You're like, as you get closer to the deadline, you realize that there are certain things you realize you can't do it all. You realize like everything you had wanted to do to set up the event perfectly, you can't do it. So what do? You start thinking, okay, what are the things that are a little extra that maybe I don't need to do? Like you definitely need a cash box, right? You need, you need a bar. Like there are certain things that you need, but then you start, and I think we did that during COVID too. We started realizing what's really not that important. There are certain things that you can give up, and it's not the end of the world. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think luckily for me, I think with prioritizing, delegating has become a huge priority with my work, because the more I delegate, train people, and invest into people, the more they can do the work that I was set out to do.
Yeah.
And so in that way, I feel like my capacity has been like exponentially increased, is because I have such great staff members and team members and family and friends who dedicate their own time and energy. So, and we feed onto that too.
We talked with Anissa recently about very similar conversations, about the ability to kind of know where your capacity is and be able to delegate things off and really support those individuals to be able to do that work so that you're not thinking about it. You've had staff all along. There are certain businesses that start and they don't have staff, and they're kind of looking to understand, like, how do I delegate things when I don't know if I have the money to do that? And I know I've had this conversation with certain restaurants too, where they're like, I feel like I need to have another person, but I don't know if that will actually, if I'm quite there yet. How has that worked for you in trying to understand, like, that your time and that your time costs money? How do you bring on somebody else and know when that right time is there?
In the beginning, especially, I think when you start a new business, you have to expect to do everything. And I know I expected that from the very beginning, and it worked for me. And when I realized that, I think you have to do an evaluation of your finances. So when you see that you have some extra money that you can spare, that's definitely a good sign. Like I wouldn't spend money. I didn't spend money that I didn't have. We I ended up paying all of our debts first, and then we added on to the staff. But I mean, and a lot of times it was more about finding the right people, not so much just trying to fill in a position. And I realized in time that if you find the right person, it's actually worthwhile to wait. So I think taking the time to hire slowly, and also managing the size of your operation so that it doesn't exceed your capacity where you're at a point where you're like desperate for anybody, because that happens a lot for sure.
Yeah.
And I think especially now in our current situation, there's going to be a lot of fluctuations.
Yeah.
I am a big believer though, just to grow slowly and manageably, and not to just like hire seasonally,
Mhm.
and understand that consistency is also a huge incentive for good people to join your team. You know,
Definitely.
like being able to offer the same amount of hours and giving them full confidence that the business will grow and their opportunities will grow with that. Um, and it's really, I don't know. I do think finding the right person and just making sure you're prepared also to train
Yeah.
and incorporate that person into the business, and also look at what ideas and new skill sets they're bringing to the table is definitely important.
Yeah, you have to be in the right set or mindset for yourself to be ready for somebody as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you mentioned COVID, as everyone is, it's at the forefront of everybody's mind at this
Mhm.
point. How have you, I guess, I mean, there's a lot of businesses right now that are pivoting and recreating
Yep,
every day, if
yep.
not,
Mhm.
multiple times a day. Um, how has your mission allowed you to kind of come back and realize like what is important? Because that's what you're talking about, right? What can I do? What am I able to do? Has your mission kind of supported that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. The mission is, I think, the only thing that kept us going.
Yeah.
Like, not the only, but it's the thing
Yeah.
that kept us going. And a lot of us, I wish I had a diary from that week, that
There's
like
that.
after they canceled the NBA championship, because
Mm-hmm.
I just remember all these thoughts going through my mind, and it's like this mix of like, oh my gosh, my business, like what about my business? Like my business is gonna fail. Like we had days where just we barely got any orders in. We
Yeah.
weren't, like it just seemed very hopeless in terms of like the revenue coming in. Like
Mm-hmm.
the numbers just weren't coming in, and there was fear about it. But I think for me, I really had to early on say to myself, like, if we tank, it's okay.
Mm.
I was like, if we go under, it's not the end of the world. And I think from that point, I was able to make much more sound decisions than
Mm.
from a place of being like, I have to do everything I can to keep the business going.
Yeah.
So I think first, like, because of our mission, I was able, because our mission, um, like, gave, like we talked about before, it gave life to Sunnies,
Yeah.
and so if I abandon the mission just to keep Sunnies alive, it's not going to work. And so we we first, even with conversations with my family and my staff, we're like, you know what, like, let's let it go. It's not the end of the world. Like, what's important right now? And it really came down to, first, let's see what's going on with our staff. Like, what do people need right now? What do our English students need? And so one of the first things that we did, once I went through my personal mess in my own head, was we sent out a survey to each individual staff for some of our lower level English proficiency employees. I met with them individually,
Mm.
and we basically talked about weekly budgets. So like, how much do you need to survive?
Okay.
Number two, like, what's your biggest concern when it comes to working or with COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and are there any like practical supplies that you need? So we got a sense from like a case by case basis of what people need, what our communities needed, and we just, because of our mission, we turned into an entity that could fulfill those needs. And basically, like, even the business, we wanted to continue supporting and working with our staff, which is why we did whatever we could to increase revenue.
Yeah, really.
But if it weren't for honestly, I don't think I would have been motivated to do it.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Heidi from Franklin Alley, how we both agreed, like, the couple weeks after the start of COVID was like the most productive weeks of our entire lives, because we were just like, churning it out, doing what we could. And I was just so I think determined uh, to support our staff, but on the other end of things, I was just really moved by the way our staff ended up supporting me and
Mm.
supporting the business. Like even when unemployment kicked in, all of my staff stayed on. Like none of them opted to get the extra 600 a week. They worked, and they worked more. When we weren't sure about revenues, like I had, and about like layoffs and stuff, I had people coming up to me and saying that they volunteer to be laid off,
Oh, wow.
but that they would still work with us as a volunteer. And these are like, they're not people with money either. You know, they're
Yeah.
not, they're, you know, they're restaurant workers. Like we're the restaurant industry too. And
Yeah.
I think I was just so, I didn't expect that. I think as business owners, sometimes we think we're the ones who have to bear the brunt of everything. We're the ones supporting our staff. Like we're just kind of in it and survivors, which we are. But it was really, really, yeah, I was very humbled just the way our community came together and how everyone believed so much in Sunhee's when we started fundraising, the
Mhm.
support that we raised, and even like little letters and emails. Like it was just like unbelievably encouraging, where I realized like, wow, Sunhee's has actually like become its own thing. Like it's not about me, like it's about again this community of people, who and communities of different people
Yeah.
who really believe in our mission. I was like, I would get like a random like $500 check in the mail from a guy I've never met, and it was like addressed to Jinah Kim. And I was just like thinking, like, who would do that unless they really believed in like me and our mission? Like if they
Yeah.
didn't believe in it, I wouldn't write a check out to a person like that.
I
uh,
mean, that shows the power of like connection that you've had with people, even though you yourself don't know who that person is. You know,
yeah, yeah.
or like you feel like you've invested in people, but they feel like they really have appreciated that, and that's why they're really giving back to you. So, I mean, I think that shows that you have done, you know, in the 4.5 years that you've existed, you've really connected with people and have built, you know, a resource that people want to support.
Hmm, hmm.
Um, I know you have, you know, a lot on your plate, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but I really do appreciate this conversation. And I think, you know, it'll help some other business owners kind of feel, um, you know, that they're also in this community, and
Yeah.
that together we can kind of support one another.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because even when I share this stuff with other business owners, I think it's easy to get discouraged if, like, let's say you feel like your staff don't appreciate you.
Hmm.
And like we've had maybe like one or two, like, and that's the thing, you just can't, uh, like, yes, I think what we went through is a testament to like where Sunny's is now and how much people believe in it. But like I just hope that uh like we don't depend on it either, like or people have to understand that, like, you know, sometimes you're not going to be appreciated. But I think that's why like we have to also reflect in a very real way of like, okay, why is it that um maybe I'm not doing as well in these aspects? Like what is it, maybe I don't have a mission, you know, maybe um it's because I didn't put them first when, you know, like I don't know, there's a lot of questions I think I know I have to look back and ask
Yeah.
about. um
Yeah. Think internally as well.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like I don't know, at this point it's just like you got you see your investment in terms of where you put your time and money, like
Yeah.
it's from a business standpoint, for
Yeah.
sure.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Well, I want to let you go, but I really do appreciate this conversation. Would love to continue it at some point other than
I
this.
know, thanks Katie, thank you so much. Oh, whatever happened, oh wait, we're still recording, sorry. But
If we can talk after this, but is there a way that people can connect with you if they want to learn more about you or about the businesses that you run?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I have a team of great people who could also respond to this, but
Mhm.
I seem busy, but you know, I'm really not. You know, I hang. I'm down to hang. So I always tell people like just call me or call actually don't call Sunny's, but just email me Jinah@sunny's.com, Jinah. If you leave a message on the website, or I'm not always at the restaurant just because of school now, but I really love connecting with people on this, even if they're at a place where I mean, it's not even about like me helping or anything. I think it's just like, having that conversation. And I know I'm very encouraged when I hear other people's stories.
Definitely.
And I'm an open book.
Perfect. Well, we'll send all the people your way.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a little bit of love right now. I think
Absolutely.
connection is definitely important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording. We can talk a little bit afterwards.
Okay, got it. Thanks, Katie.